Hello, my name is Jeffrey Zielinski. I am co-founder of the Serviceberry Group and host of our Branch Network podcast. I'm really excited because I have a personal friend, honestly more of a sister than anything else, Ashley Recton, joining us today. Ashley is really a remarkable person, and I mean that very sincerely. We love her with our whole heart. She is one of Patty's closest friends of all time. But you really have a remarkable story. I'm honored that we've been a part of your life. Our friendship means a lot to us, but I think it's fitting that with this organization that we're starting, you have a story that you can share. When we were building this, obviously the focus is special needs, disabilities, and things like that. But we also wanted to talk a lot about the sort of inspirational side of things. And I think your stories is as inspirational as they come. So Ashley, thank you
You're welcome.
for joining us. And why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ashley. As Jeff said, I'm really good friends with the family. They're like my best friends. And they've been with me through this journey, and I'm a stroke survivor.
Awesome. Well, thanks for introducing yourself. So if you don't mind,
Yeah.
why don't you just tell us a little bit about your story? Tell us
Okay.
as much as you'd like,
hmm
and we can, kind of have a conversation around it.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys about my stroke story of what happened to me.
Sure.
So I had my stroke on November 7th, 2023. I'll never forget the date. So it just started out an ordinary day. My stroke came out of the blue. Like there was no signs. Now looking back, there probably was some like signs that I wasn't aware of, like bad headaches,
Mhm.
migraines. Um,
Ordinary things.
yeah, ordering things you wouldn't think anything of. So I was at home, and my mom was visiting from Florida. And I'm like, "Mom, I don't feel so good. I'm gonna like lay down,
Hmm.
go to bed." So I went to bed and I got up because I felt the need to throw up. And I didn't make it to the toilet. So I'm like, "Mom, I don't feel so good. Can you like clean up this up?" Because I felt like I was gonna throw up again.
Sure.
So I went outside when she was cleaning because I only have one bathroom. I threw up a few more times, and then when I came back in, I'm like, I just didn't feel right. I'm like, this is weird. Um, then I went in my bed and I had a pot by me. But I was just like kind of like I know it's kind of gross, but I threw up until I had like nothing left in my
Sure.
stomach
Yeah.
and I was like dry heaving. And then it kind of got progressively worse. So I remember being on my bathroom floor with the pot and just having I was like sweating, and it kind of felt like I never fainted before, but it felt like the whole like room was spinning, and I had a horrible headache. That's the other thing, is I had a really bad headache, and my vision, I was just like closing my eyes because I thought of my head. And I was like, "Mom, I don't feel right. Something's wrong.
Hmm.
You need to call 911." And she's like, "I do, I do." I'm like, "Yeah, something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but I just don't feel right." So she's like, "Okay." So she called 911 for me. They came. I can't even tell you what they looked like because my eyes were closed. I had such a bad headache. And at that time, I feel like it was affecting my vision. And I didn't notice it was
Sure.
affecting like my brain at the point. So they were like, they checked my vitals, and I think they took into account my age and, stuff like that. So they're like, "Well, your vitals okay. Do you want to go?" So at that point, we made that decision. Like I didn't go to the hospital because I was like,
Hmm.
I heard so many people, so many stories where like they take your age and into account, and like, like
And how old were you when
I
it
was
happened?
only 36.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, and then I got to the point where like it kept going on. It was like nighttime, but then it was like probably when she called 911 the first time. I think it was like around like midnight, 1 o'clock, and then yeah, it just kept getting worse, and then I remember, like, I couldn't walk, like, I
Hmm.
was, like, kinda, like, crawling to the shower, and I'm just like, "Something's not right, I don't feel right." So and then in the morning, I remember trying to type because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, we need to tell my manager I'm not coming into work." Because 'Cause I'm like, "Of
It
course."
seems like a reasonable thing. Right.
Yeah. So I tried to, like, type on my computer my password, and it kept saying, "Wrong password." I'm like, "Why is it saying wrong
Hmm.
password?" So then I'm like, "Mom, we need to text my manager." So I got my phone. I tried texting him. I couldn't text.
Hmm.
I couldn't. I'm like, I was getting frustrated. I'm like, "Mom, you just do it. Like, text him and say I'm not coming in." Um, so then she said, like, I was in bed. I remember eating buttered toast because she thought I had like a really bad migraine and it was affecting my vision and like that's why I was sick.
Not to interrupt, did you ever, like, deal with headaches before?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I suffered from, like, migraines.
Right.
This is where I feel like maybe I kinda ignored, like,
Sure.
symptoms,
Mhm.
which I don't have anymore, after my stroke. So then, yeah, I couldn't text, I couldn't, like, type on my computer, and then my mom said she asked me my address, and I gave her my old address, not my
Mhm.
current address where I live, and she's like, "You weren't making sense because what I've been told and what I read is, like, when you're having a stroke, like, you think you make sense, but other people
Sure.
are like, "You don't make
Mhm.
sense." So she called 911 again, and they took me this morning time now, and, I don't remember anything. I don't remember them taking me. Apparently I had an angiogram. They did like a CAT scan, like tests. I don't remember anything until I woke up. And when I went to the hospital, I had a craniectomy, which is brain surgery to relieve the pressure on my brain. I had an arterial dissection, so my artery tore, which caused my stroke. But usually my kind of stroke is caused by like either like going to a chiropractor or like bone force trauma to tear your artery, which I didn't go to
Sure.
a
Yeah.
chiropractor. I didn't like have any bone force trauma to my head. So the doctors don't know what caused my stroke or what
I was
happened.
just gonna ask that, yeah.
Yeah. And then I was in a induced coma for I believe 2 weeks. Because they wanted me to rest my brain
Mhm.
after the surgery. And when they brought me out of the coma, I remember the first thing I asked, so my dad passed away 5 years ago.
Mhm.
And at this time he was, passed away. And I woke up and I remember seeing my mom and I was like, Dad's not here. He doesn't care. Like
Mm.
not knowing.
Right.
And then she didn't know what to say. She's like, she just woke up,
Y
She's like, so she had to like,
That
uh,
was relatively recent, in a timeline from when you had the stroke,
yeah,
wasn't that long
yeah,
prior, yeah.
yeah. And then, so she's like, "Well, he's just fishing right now." She didn't know what to say to me.
Mhm.
She's like, "She just woke up
What can
from a
you say?
coma."
Yeah.
So she asked my neurosurgeon, and he said, "Don't lie to her. Tell the truth." So she told me, she's like, "Dad's not here anymore. He passed away." And I remembered like what happened, and I kind of relived the grief again of
Sure.
like my dad dying. But I found that very like strange, like just waking up and asking because I didn't see my dad.
Mhm.
So I believe, like, when I was in my coma, I believe he was with me, and that's why I asked about him when I first woke up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so I guess before we get into some of the aftermath, wanna tell us a little bit about your life prior
Mhm.
to the stroke?
Yeah, so my life prior to the stroke, I was very independent. I was living on my own. Um, I still have him, but
Best friends with Patty and Jeff,
yeah,
and no.
yeah, of course.
Alright.
Uh, uh,
Oddly.
I have a dog and 2 cats. I was driving, I was
Yep.
working full time. But as I said, I was living a very independent life. It
Yeah.
was just me and I was doing everything. I was traveling on my own, but yeah,
Yeah. So, kinda going back into the timeline here. So, you wake up, you ask for your father,
yeah,
but even leading up to that, you were, I guess, for a lack of better words, like, reciting things that weren't in the present tense that may
mhm,
have been true at a time prior.
yeah,
Given that, because it seems to me that at least some of the symptoms at least kind of took place prior to the stroke itself, or you were in
mhm,
the process of having one.
yeah,
Then you go to the hospital, you're in a medically induced coma. You wake up, things are still obviously a little strange for
mhm,
you. How long did it take for you, or at least maybe when did you first realize the magnitude of what
mhm,
happened? Because,
mhm,
I mean, it probably goes without saying, stroke is a significant
yeah.
health event.
Yeah, it is. I don't think I knew the magnitude of what happened to me for like a couple months because, um, when I had the stroke and then I came out of my coma, I don't think I was processing things like how I usually process because my brain was healing and affected my brain. So, um, at, that whole timeline too, like being in the hospital and for like a month in ICU, another
Mhm.
month in Kessler, everything was really foggy.
Yeah.
So I feel like it took at least like a good like month or two for me to be like, oh, like,
I had a stroke.
yeah, like,
I
yeah,
remember when Patty and I were there with Alex and your mom,
yeah,
I mean, candidly, like, you were asking questions, you were talking about, like, trips we'd gone on,
mhm,
and just having a normal conversation, as normal as we could have.
yeah,
I remember, communication wasn't the easiest.
yeah.
We were trying to put on, like, John Mayer through the Spotify, if you recall all of that. But I remember vividly, and Patty and I were actually just talking about this kinda leading up to this conversation, like, we actually didn't know how we should, like, appropriately
Yeah,
talk about.
yeah,
We knew what happened, obviously,
yeah,
everyone around you knew what
yeah,
happened, and I remember that vividly, and I remember when you were going through your, I don't know if it's occupational therapy or your
yeah,
rehabilitation, um, that was several months after, and that's when I think we all kind of first started talking about, like, you realizing, like,
yeah,
what had happened, and I think it was a conversation with your mom. I don't wanna put words in her mouth, but
yeah,
I think we were asking her, like, does she have any idea, like,
yeah,
what happened? And I
yeah,
think, Ann, your mom was like, I don't know."
yeah,
And that you don't know.
I know.
Kinda just goes to show, again, the magnitude of real a life-threatening,
Yeah,
event.
mhm,
Um, so you kinda mentioned it, but I think as it relates to our group and, creating that space of inclusion and kinda helping, get an understanding for what you're going through.
yeah,
Can you talk a little bit about, like, your rehab process? And, again, I remember the early stages of
yeah,
that. You lived it.
mhm,
Talk a little bit about that.
yeah. Okay, so I was in ICU for a month, about a month, and I remember I didn't have rehab then, but I remember them being like having me walk.
Mhm,
I guess they want to see if I can walk on my own and how well I can walk. And then I was transferred to Kessler in West Orange, and that's where I started like rehab immediately. So I was doing physical therapy, occupational therapy, cognitive therapy,
mhm.
probably, like, every day. Um, I was off on the weekends since people weren't working, but yeah, it was like it was exhausting for me too
Sure,
because, your brain was healing. I went through a huge surgery. So just, like, an hour doing physical therapy or cognitive
sure.
therapy was so tiring for
I
me.
remember you being tired. I
Yeah,
remember that, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
What do you think are some parts of your recovery,
Mhm,
um, that maybe people don't think about? Again, not thinking about it through the lens of having a stroke, but as a father to a child with
yeah,
special needs, like, you'd actually, and unless you're living it, I feel like it's almost impossible to truly understand
mhm,
just how much
yeah,
therapeutic intervention actually takes place.
yeah,
And that's just, in our scenario, we mentioned in the previous episode that Hannah and I did that,
yeah,
within the special needs community, thinking about disabilities and things
mhm,
like that. I mean, the range is extraordinary, almost infinitely wide,
yeah,
right? And you fall into that
yeah,
net.
mhm,
So what do you think that people may not realize or take into account post stroke recovery,
yeah.
therapeutic intervention, things like that?
Yeah. So I was on disability from work for 6 months. I was inpatient rehab during my stay at Kessler. And then when I was discharged, I was outpatient rehab. So I was doing that like every day too. But I feel like people don't realize, like, yeah, I might look the same and I
Hmm.
might like act the same, but I don't feel the same as I
Sure.
was before. So even, like, when I went back to work full time, like, I was doing therapy still after work. I
Hmm.
would do, like, physical therapy
Hmm.
or OT, and, like, it's so exhausting because 'cause you're working full time and then you're going right from work to, like, therapy
Sure.
sessions. So, it takes up so much of your time, and it gets, like, exhausting where you're kinda like, like, you're trying to focus on yourself, but also, like, your career, so it's hard to balance that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you were in when I say dynamic age, I mean, you were doing very well with your career.
Yeah.
Like you said, you were living independently,
Yeah.
and this is a pretty big roadblock.
Mhm.
And so, you go through this roadblock and now you're trying to get back to what things were like before, but things are not like how they were
No.
before, just as a default
Yeah.
to what had happened.
Yeah.
And as I was kind of putting down my notes, like you just hit it. I don't even have to repeat it, but I think it's worth repeating is that, on the surface, you'd
Mhm.
never know.
Yeah.
You'd never know.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to your remarkable recovery and your turnaround,
Yeah.
the hurdles that you've overcome, and again, I say it all the time. Unless you're in it,
Mhm.
it's almost impossible to actually truly understand it to
Yeah.
its fullest
Mhm.
extent.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I want to ask you a question, and you can answer this however you'd
Okay.
like. And I'll even kind of lay into it from my
Mhm.
experience a little bit. Is
Mhm.
kind of what you wish the public understood.
Mhm.
I think you touched on it a little bit,
Yeah.
but something I think about as a parent.
Yeah.
Again, completely different circumstance, but
Mhm.
within the context of what we're talking about,
Mhm.
is that unseen part of
Yeah.
it. Um, Things on their surface may appear to be perfectly
Yeah.
fine, but what's under the hood, is maybe working a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that maybe
Mhm.
in just a second. But the unseen side of things, and I think that's just a perfectly human response,
Mhm.
whether a day is turned upside down or just trying
Yeah.
to get out the house to go to Target, becomes an obstacle. And that's not an everyday occurrence, but it's those sometimes what may appear to be little things that become very big things, particularly when you don't expect them. And I would say more often than not, at least from my experience as a parent, those things are somewhat unexpected.
Yeah.
Stroke survivor, as your shirt says, overcoming an enormous health obstacle. What do you think, from your point of view, you wish the public understood?
Mhm.
And it could be about anything.
I think the biggest thing we had talked about this is, like, don't assume that because someone looks normal and acts normal, like, they feel normal, or they feel like I feel like who I was, prior to my stroke is so different from
Mhm.
post my stroke.
Sure.
Um, and yeah, you're just not the same person, and I feel like also people need to realize too, like, when I so I didn't drive for a little bit because
Sure. I remember.
I had double vision when I had my
Mhm.
stroke. I didn't mention that before, but I woke up with double vision. So
Mhm.
thank God it went away. I had to get prism glasses too afterwards, which is like
I was just gonna say, what are prism glasses?
so I had to go to an ophthalmologist. Oh my God, I can't remember. It's a special ophthalmologist.
Mhm.
It's not normal ones for your brain. Um, but basically, Prism glasses is they'll put like a patch on one side of glasses. It's like almost like wavy, but I can see it, but other people can't see it.
Interesting.
It's like
Mhm.
it's clear. And then it has your other eye like adjust to working harder. So I had to wear those like he's like when you feel like you should wear them, like wear them. So I wear them like when I watch TV because I feel it, or like when I was like doing therapy, I wear them, and then it got better over time. It felt like my double vision like went from like I couldn't like looking forward to like only when I looked down on the sides I had double vision,
Sure. Yeah.
and then it went away. So, last time I saw him, he said everything was good. He's like, "You're 99.9% healed." I'm like, "That's
It's
great."
amazing. It's
He's like, "I'm
amazing.
not gonna say you're 100% healed
Sure.
because if you're tired or like, you're straining, it might come back for a little bit, but it'll go away."
Mhm.
But thank God I haven't had that. Yeah, but I'm
But
sorry, what was
no,
the
but
question?
I was it's actually a good
Go ahead.
extension. That's okay. That's having a conversation, right? That's I don't know if it's what we want, but
Yeah,
it's great.
yeah,
Great context. But you're talking about like what you're a different person than who you
yeah,
were before, and
yeah,
um, I think you're right on the money. I we talk about this inclusion. We talk about wanting to lift each other up. It's actually kind of a perfect segue, I think,
Mhm.
about sort of the celebratory side of this journey that
Yeah.
we're on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Patty and I, the whole family, obviously so honored to have you in our lives. You're never going to get rid of us.
I'm not gonna have you guys in my lives.
um, but we've actually talked about this. The little wins matter,
Yeah.
and those little wins, at least on the surface, for
Mhm.
us are huge
Yeah.
wins.
Mhm.
Because, and I think this ties in nicely to what you were saying before, because what came easy in your life prior to
Yeah.
stroke
Mhm.
might not
Mhm.
necessarily be so easy.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear from you about maybe some of those things that we take for granted. You mentioned driving.
Yeah.
You mentioned your vision.
Yeah.
We're both, wearing glasses, but maybe for different reasons.
Yeah.
But, getting behind a wheel and driving is something
Yeah.
we probably take for granted. But
Mhm.
you had to work very hard to get back behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but writing took a while
Oh,
to come
yeah.
back.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
being able to do that, I don't want to take words out of your mouth, but I'd love for you to talk about why celebrating those quote unquote little wins is
Mhm.
actually big, and some of the things that maybe you worked through to illustrate that.
So, I feel like it's very important to celebrate, like, every win you have in life
Hmm.
because having a big goal can feel, like, daunting, but these little wins ultimately lead you to, like, the big goal
Sure.
in the picture. So, for example, I remember this is small, but I went back to the gym, which is big for me too. It's a little win for other people, but it's a big win for
Sure.
me.
Of course.
Because I was so nervous to go back to the gym. So prior to my stroke, I used to love the gym.
Yep.
I used to go to boxing and do weight classes and stuff like that. So it's just going back because it really
And it was
affected.
meaningful for your family. Your mom
Yeah.
lived in the gym, right? Right? It's important to you.
Yeah,
How did it? Yeah.
yeah,
So
self-care.
yeah,
But yeah,
go
like
girl.
I I was nervous because my balance off, my stroke affected my right side, so I had weakness on my right side. So I'm like, if I go to the gym, can I do like lunges or
Sure.
things? Because certain things like pistol squats were really hard for me. So we worked on that in physical therapy. I remember in the gym, I did a backwards lunge, and I was like, oh, this is like exciting. I'm like,
Yeah.
I actually did it. So I actually turned the trainer. I'm like, just so you know, I'm like, I'm really proud of myself,
Yeah. For
for
sure.
doing a backward lunge.
I don't even know what
Um,
that is. Sounds hard.
but yeah, I'm like, this is the first time I did it. Of course, like my balance isn't the greatest, but it definitely helps your
Hmm.
balance. Like keep doing it. Repetitions help me. Even like like lunges help my balance, or like doing pistol squats, and we do them at physical therapy, like different things for my
Hmm.
balance. And like over time, I see like my balance getting better, like as more I do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love what you said too, just to make it a point of emphasis. Like
Hmm.
we have to, I think setting big goals is important,
Yeah.
but to get there, you have to take the steps, right? What do you crawl before you walk? Whatever they say. Trying to get my kid to roll over, but his head weighs him down. You know,
Yeah.
but no, you're so right. And again, I think in your circumstance, so many of the things that you would never even have to think
Yeah.
about, again, I'll go back to the car
Mhm.
example. Starting your car, driving to work
Yeah.
are things that you had to relearn all over
Uh-huh.
again. Not to mention, and not to, bring back the emotional side of it, but, getting to a place where you had to, relive some consequential events in your
Yeah.
life. Uh, you know, who is going to look at you and think,
Yeah.
and think that. So I love what you said, that you never know what someone's going through until you either become part of their lives,
Mhm.
part of a community, which is obviously what we're hoping to build here.
And I forgot to say this. I forgot to mention about the
Yeah, yeah,
driving thing. So when I wasn't driving, my mom had to drive me, and I feel like I spoke about my independence. Like I was really independent before my stroke. So driving, you don't realize how much independence that takes away from you or relying on
sure.
someone else. So her driving me, I'm just like, it was frustrating because I'm like, I used to just go where I please, do
Hmm.
whatever I want. So I had to rely on my mom to like drive me therapy sessions or doctor visits. And that was huge. Like getting behind the wheel again. Um, I was so nervous. It's
Sure.
like, it's nerve wracking because you feel different, your body's different, but just, like, even, like, I feel like your body is trying to protect yourself, so,
Mhm.
like, for example, like, the craniectomy, so I'm like, "Oh my god, my head," I'm like, "I don't wanna hit the back of my seat," you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, of course. Well, I was
I
actually
felt
thinking
like
that
it's
with the
tensing up.
gym. When you were
Yeah,
talking about the gym, that's where my mind went,
yeah,
like, you're lifting metal, if you
yeah,
there's equipment everywhere, if you back into so it's kinda where
yeah,
my mind went, not
yeah,
lunges necessarily, but I get it.
yeah,
But again, I think that shows it's kind of everything.
yeah,
It's literally almost
yeah.
everything that you have to think about.
Like, at the gym too, I have to modify a lot of
Sure.
workouts, to fit my needs. For example, too, like, I get kinda dizzy if I, like, do, push-up not push-ups, I'm sorry, curl-ups.
Mhm.
So when I go back, I have to, like, go slowly and get up slowly. Because if I
Yeah.
do fast, I get too dizzy. So I just do what I can and do what my body can.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's all you really can do. So it's
Yeah.
what I'm hearing, it's a process. It's
Mhm.
a continuous process, and you gotta face it head on. You can't, kick these issues to the side because that's gonna be a detriment to your, long-term
Mhm.
success,
Yeah.
candidly. So here's a tough one. What are you most proud of? Because I think there's probably a lot of things, right?
I know. So much I'm proud of.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say my positive attitude, because that's huge. So your mindset makes like a huge difference.
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the way you feel or the way you look at yourself. I remember when I first had my stroke, and like writing and just doing anything, I'm like, I was so hard on myself. I was just like trying to write. I have this journal where I would practice writing. And from the beginning until, like, probably I would say, like, a few months out of my stroke, you see such a big difference in my
Mhm.
writing. Like, I you can't even read what I was writing in the beginning of my journal, but I would say I'm most proud of my mindset, my positive attitude, and, um, traveling solo again is a huge
Mm,
thing to
mhm.
be proud of. I was so proud of myself. So
We
I
traveled a lot.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
haunted hotels, and
It's always
one
haunted.
thing about Ashley is she is the most adventurous person I may have ever met in my life, and true story, we went to was it Savannah? I think it was Savannah. Yeah, we went to New Orleans, we went to Savannah, all these places, and Ashley had the great idea, as you usually did, to stay in one of these, like, haunted hotels or whatever, and, of course, Patty made me call the hotel to make
Oh
sure we didn't get a
no.
non-haunted room, but all kidding aside, like, you're super adventurous, you
Yeah,
love to travel,
yeah,
you travel alone, you
yeah,
travel in groups,
yeah,
we've traveled with you. Alex lives in Texas, such
yeah,
a, family friend that
yeah,
we all love and cherish,
yeah,
yeah, talk about that because I think it's important because it's something that you're like,
yes,
gaining back, I guess. I don't know
yes.
if I'm phrasing it the right way.
So my first trip was actually probably about 7 months after my stroke. So I went on a retreat through Love Your Brain.
Mhm.
So I know you're talking about a sense of community, so
It's
just
what we're
going
all
there.
about. That's this
Yeah,
whole thing is about
yeah,
building community.
yeah, so just going there and like, it was opened up to people with TBIs and people with acquired brain injuries now. So I think I was the only person there with an acquired brain injury. So a lot of people had TBIs, but just going and like relating to other
Do you
people,
know what remember what a TBI
a
is?
traumatic brain injury.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it's like people who might hit their heads,
Mhm. Of
concussions. So they kind of went around, told their stories. Everyone had different stories, of
course,
course.
yeah.
But it's a way to relate to people and, like, they know what you're going through. So on this retreat too, they had, like, brain healthy food for you, and this was free to me. The only thing I had to pay for was my flight, and they rely on donations. So just staying there, we
Mhm.
stayed at, like, a camp, so I stayed with other people in, one building, and then, um, yeah, the food was free. They have brain healthy food. They have a lake, so they had art
Nice.
therapy.
Yeah.
But yeah, just going on my first trip there and kind of relating to people it was really nice for me. And then I actually went to Sedona, Arizona a
Nice.
few months ago,
Mhm.
probably like 2 or 3 months ago. And that was actually on my bucket list before my
Yeah.
stroke. So I'm like, okay, this is like a good, like, I feel like it's a nice wellness trip for me. So we went
It
there.
doesn't hurt that it's beautiful.
Oh, it's so pretty. Yeah. So when I went there, when I flew in, it's a 2-hour drive to Sedona. I flew into Phoenix. So I rented a car. I drove myself 2 hours to the hotel. Then of course a travel day, so I rested.
Mhm.
The next day I did an ATV tour by myself with other people. I did a 6-hour hike the following day with a tour guide. Then I did like a solo hike the next day. And then the last day I was there was more like a wellness day, like massage and, shopping, whatever I
Mhm.
want to do.
Mhm.
So I was really proud of myself because I'm like, I was so nervous. I'm like, am I gonna be able to do this hike? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? But I was like really nervous and I was like, oh my God, it's my first solo trip by myself
You're by
after my
yourself.
stroke.
Right.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
I was like really like nervous. But after I did it, it's so
Patty and
empowering.
I were ready to buy one-way tickets to Arizona. We were on standby.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's just like so empowering to travel up by yourself,
Sure.
especially after what happened to me and doing what I did. I was so proud of myself.
Yeah. Can I go back to something? So
Mhm.
you mentioned it's Love Your Brain. That's the name of the
Yeah. Hmm.
organization. So you mentioned it. So I'm going to ask,
Hmm.
about community.
Yeah.
Hannah and I were talking about it in another episode about why it's important. And we were
Yeah.
thinking about it through the lens of,
Yeah.
sort of the special needs community. And
Yeah.
what I want to avoid to do is kind of put like a stamp on special needs. Like, it meets this like,
Hmm.
definition,
Yeah.
kind of box in because I
Hmm.
don't think it does.
No.
I think it's a very wide net.
Hmm.
How much, and you can think about it from, family and friends, you can think about it from the organization that you've been a part of, like how important has community been to your sort of post stroke
Hmm.
life?
I think it's been really important because I went to a few support groups like
Sure.
in person, and it's really hard to find support groups. Well, when I went in person, it was like older people because,
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
the demographic of having a stroke. So I'm like, so now I'm a part of like group chats where younger people who had
Mm,
strokes, um, they'll like give advice or like
sure.
they'll talk about what they're going through. So it's kind of like you can relate to them because I feel like you definitely need someone who's been through what you've been through to like get what you're saying or how
Uh,
you're feeling.
it- so on the money,
Mhm.
exactly how I think about it. And also too, like, part of the reason we're even doing this is like, I don't have all the answers. I know a lot. I don't know everything. I don't know everything. But all kidding aside, like you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so for us, again, looking through a little bit of a different lens, but criteria is somewhat the same. Um, we've learned so much from what other people
Mhm.
have advised or have
Yeah.
asked, or, oh, I went through this and this is how I got
Mhm.
there. I'd
Yeah,
have to imagine, right?
yeah,
Same or at least similar sort of
yeah,
construct, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It helps.
It does. It definitely helps. And like you don't know where like some things I'm like, I don't know the answer to. Like so I will write in the group chat, like, I don't can you help me
Sure.
with this? And they
Mm-hmm.
have like their advice. And also I went to probably like last summer, I went to a summit where it's actually all stroke survivors and people I feel like were like my age group. And they
Mm,
had like vendors there too, where they had like neuro sleeves for your leg.
sure.
I have the sunflower lanyard that I
Yeah.
use when I travel. It kind of gives the airline or people who work at the
Mm-hmm.
airport to show you have a hidden disability. Um, and actually from that group, which is great. Maddie Nineback held it, and I'm going to Greece with them in September. So it's all stroke survivors. So I'm really excited about that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that. It's amazing.
Surprise!
Yeah, yeah. That's the best news I've ever heard. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
That's in what, September?
Yeah. It's in September.
To get you something for your trip. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But again, like it's so exciting. It's so celebratory,
Yeah.
and, you go through these things that, uh, I guess to some extent are dark and are
Mhm.
confusing and can make you feel isolating. You're trapped in a bubble. Where are the people that have gone through this? I know we have felt this. You have
Yeah.
certainly felt this. I think you've exhibited that.
Mhm.
But to have that sense of community and belonging, I think it's so
Mhm.
important because it helps. It's betterment for us, but it's
Yeah.
betterment for the community and all the
Yeah.
participants in it.
Mhm.
Um, so uh, you've hit on a couple of these things, but you know, the strengths that you've actually developed, right? I think
Yeah.
we spent a lot of time talking about I was able to do this
Yeah.
before, and then I kind of wasn't able to do it, or I had to learn it again, or I don't do this thing as good as I did before.
Yeah.
You mentioned balance, your handwriting,
Yeah.
the vision.
Mhm.
Um, I don't say this as a cliche. I mean it with every fiber of my being. I think in so many ways, disabilities also really enhance strengths and
Mhm.
help us to help folks that have them to build other strengths. What are some of the strengths that you've developed that you had maybe post stroke prior, as opposed to prior?
I would say being kind to myself.
Mm,
That's really big thing. It's so easy to get in the habit of like being so hard on yourself. So after what happened to me too, like in the beginning, I was like so hard on myself. I'm like, why can't I do this anymore? I would
sure.
like cry. And I'm just like, I have a second chance at life, you know? So I try not to talk negative to myself and I try not to let the little things bother me.
Hmm.
And like, the little things, like, people might think are big, almost like I let it roll off my shoulder. I'm like, "It doesn't
Yeah.
matter in the long run." And I try to live in the present. So I try not
Hmm.
to live in the past 'cause you can't change it. I
Sure.
try not to live in the future 'cause tomorrow's not guaranteed. So I just try to live in the present of, like, enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say the biggest strength I have right now is probably my positive attitude too. So I think that's a really big strength for me. And also just being kind to myself.
Yeah. Well, you're amazing.
Thank you.
If I haven't said it before, I'll say it again. I'm really happy that you did this with me.
Me too.
I'd like to keep the conversation going, and I know we talked about things like emotions,
Mhm,
validating those emotions,
mhm,
because the reality is they are valid, and we're entitled to feel the way we
yeah,
feel about the things that we're going through.
mhm.
But any parting words or anything you want to say before we sign off?
Hmm,
You don't have to.
I know. I'm like, "Oh, what's trying to say?" I just wanna remind people just to be kind to yourself and say positive things to yourself because that makes such a big difference. Don't talk negative to yourself, talk positive, and just yeah.
And kindness to others.
Yeah,
I
kindness to others is a huge thing.
huge,
Yeah,
huge.
because you don't know what they're going through or, like, they may be going through and that's the way they're acting, so just
Hmm.
be kind to everyone.
Yeah, it sounds so simple. It
Yeah.
sounds like a cliche,
Mhm.
but when you really dig deep into the simplicity of
Yeah.
it, kindness to yourself, kindness
Yeah.
to others,
Yeah.
um, it's enormously important.
It is.
So, Ashley,
Yeah.
as a formal thank you for joining me
Of
today.
course.
I really appreciate your time, and thanks for joining. We'll have you on again.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
See ya.